What? I don't know about you, but I'm a big fan of road trips. The ability to pile into just about any car and set sail on the open road with your friends. From Anchorage to Orlando with every weird little stop in between. It's an incredible way to see the country and build memories. So long as you have the patience for it. You always hope that when on the road, you can see as many sights as you can stand to in between all those moments where there's nothing really going on. What you don't hope for, though, is to see scientific horrors pop up in your way that not even Sam Lake himself could come up with. Which is a very big possibility in the state of Washington. I can tell you now that any supernatural stories you may or may not have heard about the state are absolutely true. Remember Twin Peaks? Alan Wake? Those are documentaries. Hell, you ever wonder why the city of Spokane, despite being such a small city, was able to host a World's Fair in the 70s? No? Understandable, but I'm gonna tell you anyway. Well, it was because the world was afraid of what they might unleash upon them. Supernatural blackmail is Washington's greatest export, and it's all in the name of keeping people from getting wise to what is really going on. Keeping one place secret, in the hopes that no one would ever be dumb enough to come snooping around, lest they have a death wish. The Olympic Exclusion Zone.
Out here on the Olympic Peninsula. We hope you packed that umbrella because you're gonna need it. God, I wish I could get out of here.
Come on, listen now. Can we walk on common ground without drawing lines in the sand? Can we talk about ideas instead of shouting out all these demands?
Welcome to the Olympic Peninsula, everyone, home to some of the most beautiful natural and unnatural sights this side of the world. We do hope you enjoy your stay and make it out alive. This game had me hooked from the get-go when it was announced in 2022. That initial trailer just struck about all the right chords with me, and it permanently went on my radar. The visual style, coupled with the dark, rainy forest setting where supernatural crap is clearly going on, and I have a car, I'll be lining up, so to speak, to play your game day one. I neglected to mention it before, but I'm a pine needle-fed Washington boy through and through. So, when I do see a game set in my home state, I'm immediately more on board than usual. Everything about Pacific Drive is dripping with personality, even if you're talking from just a visual standpoint. The direction is clearly on point here. For some reason, it reminds me of the first time I played Borderlands or Okami, and that aesthetic just clicks. You know that what you're playing is going to age like a fine wine, and again, that's even if we're just talking visuals. When I play this game again, no matter how long it's been, I'm going to constantly remark on how well it has aged and how fantastic it still looks. I had never been too into the sub-genre that games like The Long Drive and My Summer Car had found themselves in. I certainly enjoyed the former a bit more for its strange, otherworldly feel, but Pacific Drive is where that feeling is at the perfect level. As a quick aside here, how actually cool is it that this game is going to be getting a physical release? Don't get me wrong, I understand that is still incredibly common, but I just didn't expect it, especially after a game like Alan Wake 2 couldn't get one. Also, no, this is not an undisclosed ad or anything like that. You guys just know how passionate I am about physical media and being able to really own your stuff. I will be picking up that copy, even though I own the Steam version. And hell, you know what? Ironwood, if you guys have any more of those really super cool toolbox limited edition versions laying around, call me. So we know how it appears. This world feels dense, it feels magical, and at the same time, scary as hell. But what really is Pacific Drive? Pacific Drive is a run-based survival game with a fairly heavy emphasis on lore and story, where you'll You'll be taking trips out into the dangerous exclusion zone to gather resources to fix and upgrade your car and garage in order to get stronger so you can venture deeper into the zone and into the mystery. As I mentioned a couple of times at this point, the game takes place in the Olympic exclusion zone, a testing grounds for new technology turned area run rampant with science gone wrong and abandoned by the US government due to an unknown incident that took place in the 50s. All we know for sure right now is that whatever happened, it was bad enough to build a 300-meter wall around it in hopes of containing what was inside and keeping everyone else out. You'll play a delivery driver whose route took them a little bit too close to the outer wall, and whoops! You're stuck in here now. Luckily, you stumble upon an Oldsmobile POS just before radiation poisoning can set in. From here on out, you and this car are inseparable. You cannot and will not make it anywhere without it. It keeps you alive, and you'll have to return the favor. That's right. This car's your new boyfriend. Aside from the car, you'll have at least a little bit of help in the form of voices over your radio from the last remaining residents of the area who all seem to have a lot of hang-ups regarding their past. Wonder what's going on there. Once you've had your first taste of this new world, you'll arrive at the garage, your safe haven and where you'll get yelled at by its owner quite a lot. This game has a story to tell, and what a fun story it is. You can learn at your own pace, and the performances from the actors elevate it even further. Pacific Drive sucks you in with intrigue and gorgeous art direction, and keeps you around with just as strong writing and an amazing score and soundtrack. Everything culminates in this beautiful package. A package that is more than enough to make anyone curious, even if you're not a fan of survival games as a whole. So what's it like to play this beautiful culmination? Before going further, I want to make mention of game performance. Now, you should take my experience with a grain of salt because I do have a very strong setup with a 4090. I played the game at maximum settings across the board at 1440p. Even with that 4090, the game did have some slight hiccups on rare occasions in certain situations. Like if I blasted open a plasma generator in the early game, which causes some resources to fall all over the ground. These hiccups only happened for the first hour or so and almost never reared their heads ever again. My roommate actually had a pretty good time playing this on their 2070 at high settings set to 1080p and even got it running a steady 30 on their Steam Deck at one point. But to make that work, some really heavy compromises were made. Just know that your mileage is going to vary. Overall, though, it does appear that the game does run pretty darn well. On top of performance, I can tell you this is a fairly tough game. You can also take that with a grain of salt because, as I have mentioned many times before, I am by no means a talented gamer. I can struggle with games in a lot of ways that might seem really trivial to some. Just know that Pacific Drive is a hard game, and it's recommended that you play it at its default difficulty settings. If you find yourself having a really tough time, this game has an exhaustive list of options to tweak the game exactly to your liking. I've made it back to the garage several times with less than half of my car. Like panels and doors, maybe a wheel or two, just gone. And for some reason, I was just as excited to make it roadworthy again and get the hell back out there. It's mind-blowing and pretty awesome seeing just how much care Ironwood have taken in making this game as accessible or available to as many players as possible. I have to say, kudos to them on that one. I know that there are probably games out there that have had more or have done better in this regard, but I was not expecting this level of tweaking in this game. I really wasn't, so it was a very nice surprise. Now, being a run-based survival game, Pacific Drive will see you choosing missions, known as trips, that you will take into the zone, where you will be gathering resources while also discovering routes deeper into said zone, with the hope of finding better loot and learning more about the story. These trips simply wouldn't be possible without your car, who I have named Space Needle Jones, who is your suit of armor, meant to keep you safe from whatever it is you could run into, as well as hold whatever you find.
My heart goes up, my heart goes down. We fall in love, and we fall back out. I'll give you anything you want, anything you want, anything. Just don't tell me no, you stop it still, then you make it rush.
This thing is a real beauty who handles like it's riding on tires made of butter, and I mean that in a positive way. In the early game, you might assume that your car is made of paper mache, with the fact that even a stiff breeze could cause some sort of damage. But as time goes on, you'll find yourself returning to the garage with more and more stuff that you'll use to upgrade just about anything you could need to. One of those more rare resources that I alluded to earlier is called an anchor, and it's needed to unlock and get at the good stuff, like increasing the garage's capacity for crap, or being able to build stronger doors and panels for old Space Needle Jones. The anchors will also be needed if you want to return home with everything you have in hand, as a successful trip is marked by making it through a gateway before an instability storm can absolutely ruin everything you've worked so hard for. So I called the car a suit of armor earlier, as that was the most apt thing I could think of at the time. It's your character's best form of protection from the world you'll be traveling in. Protection from what? Exactly. What the fuck is this? Or this? The world of Pacific Drive continues to feel unique, and that there aren't zombies or spooky monsters constantly hunting you down, but rather, there's an environment full of anomalies that really could not care less about your presence. Sure, in the real world, the environment is full of stuff that doesn't really care about you either. But at least in the real world, there aren't random pylons that try to zap you to death. Oh wait, there actually might be. Most of the anomalies can become pretty trivial, just so long as you don't run in headfirst like you might think that you can. The world isn't coming after you, but hell has no fury like one of these anomalies if you get in its way. I don't want to sit here and spoil a bunch of these anomalies. Oh god. I don't want to sit here and spoil a bunch of these anomalies for you, so let me talk about my personal favorite, the Abductor. These dudes are harmless enough, but if you get a bit too close, whether you're in your car or not, they'll aggro and try to make off with a tool you were holding, or in most cases, the entire car itself. It's less about how far they drag you, and more about where they'll try to. Most of my failed runs at first were from an abductor suddenly dragging me into another anomaly nearby, which can make quick work of you depending on what one we're talking about. Despite any time where I may have felt like a failed run was bullshit or not, I was super ready to rebuild, restock, and get back out there. The game rides the line between feeling cheated and feeling challenged, and every death I suffered was something I could have avoided. Not necessarily avoided easily, but avoided, had I paid attention and not thought I knew everything already. Ralph from Skill Up eloquently likened a lot of the world of Pacific Drive with a need to touch the fire to see how it burns. Sure, you can scan anomalies and learn their names, but if you really want to find out exactly what they do, it's all up to you. Ooh, I wonder what this does. Ah! You have to get very close and very involved with everything in this world to really begin to learn anything. At this point, it's been a pretty darn glowing review, so you might be wondering, was there anything that you didn't like? Is there a catch here? Alright, so it's quite obvious that I am in love with this game. Are there any things that I kind of bounced off of or just didn't particularly enjoy? Honestly, I only experienced like 2 things that I think I need to make mention of. And I want to remind everybody that these reviews aren't meant to give you some strict, rigid, objective view. These are very much exclusively my personal opinions. May seem obvious, but I just wanted that to be fresh in your mind. I briefly spoke about how games are harder for me than a lot of people. So, one of my only issues was the quirk system having a limit on guesses after each trip. To add some more detail here, Pacific Drive has a mechanic called quirks, where your car will develop strange ailments that you have to pay close attention to, so you can return to your garage and try your best to diagnose what exactly is causing it. Once you have properly diagnosed it, your Tinker Station will tell you what is needed to fix it, and there you go. I know you simply need to pay attention to diagnose one, but sometimes my brain will start paying attention to other things while out and about. The upgrade path does make this system a good bit easier as time goes on, and if it ever really bothered me that much, I can just, like with many things, turn it off completely or tweak it to my liking in the difficulty settings. The settings themselves can make a lot of difficulty concerns moot to point out, but if you like achievements like me, suddenly a few of them will become off limits to mess with. This one's less of a gripe and more of something I wanted to mention just in case it could be an issue for you. The UI is gorgeous, but might be a bit difficult to get comfortable with at first. It took me a couple of hours to fully get into. Again, your mileage will vary. I like saying that for this video because haha car. Finally, this does bring me to something I did not have any issue with at all, but was a massive point of controversy for a lot of people at launch. And sort of still today. The game's saving system only allows for manual saves when at the garage, and autosaves occur when driving between zones through the junctions. For a lot of people, this meant that shorter gaming sessions would be a little bit more difficult. The game's director wrote up a community post addressing this and why they did go this route, rather than allowing saves whenever or wherever. I urge you to give it a read. Any insight that people like us can be given into the development process is a good thing. Whether or not you like a design decision or don't accept an answer, it's still cool getting to hear these things. Because in my experience, decisions are made, games are released, and you will never know why they decided to do that, or why something like saving anywhere might not have been very attainable to do, especially at the end of production. Some things can sound really simple and easy and brain dead to just plop in there, but it's never that easy. This might be a no-deal scenario for you, and I totally get it. Not all of us have the time to play a game as long as we want. So at the end of the day, what do you really need to know? Pacific Drive is a great game. It's hard, but it perfectly rides that line between making you feel cheated and making you feel challenged. It might be a bit overwhelming at first, but if it scratches that certain itch for you like it did for me, you're gonna have a great time. With a wealth of gameplay options, you can tailor this sucker to exactly what you want or need. It seems that Ironwood have taken great care in making sure that this title is as accessible as possible, available to as many as possible, without forcing yellow paint on those that might lose their minds if they see it. That's not a dig at people that dislike yellow paint, by the way. I get reminded of a quote from Arrowhead Games quite often now. A game for everyone is a game for no one. This game is certainly for me, and I really, really hope that it is also for you. I would like to thank all of you for continuing to humor me with this weird change of pace that I'm currently in. Hopefully I do get better at this. I know that right now I'm a little bit rocky, and, well, I don't aim to be that way forever. For now, since I don't know how to do outros, I'm just going to stare at you for a few extra seconds.